You never got a call?
I never got a call, I never got a text.
We're still having sex, Your Honor.
All this time?
Yes, even to this day.
What?
You know, up till a week ago.
Up till a week ago?
Yes.
Wait, Mr. Jones, you're laughing. Are you laughing because you don't believe it, or are you laughing because it's possible? Ms. Pence, you were asked, did you have sexual intercourse with a man whom you cheated on Mr. Patrick with more than once? You said no. The lie detector determined you were being deceptive.
Looking at this couple, you could tell they just weren't meant for each other. Mrs. Johnson dragged Mr. Johnson to court on the matter of him not being a good dad. Was Mr. Johnson having any of it? Hell no. Their messy situation began like this.
Mrs. Johnson, you are here today on the verge of divorce because you claim your husband of 7 years is forcing you to choose him over your 12-year-old son, Elijah. You state that you have separated multiple times over the past 5 years of your marriage. You have petitioned the court to order Mr. Johnson into family counseling.
Mr. and Mrs. Johnson have been at each other's throats for quite some time now. Having been married for up to 7 years, their marriage has crash-landed in a state of bad to worse. Trust me, it's crazy.
Nobody came to his
He wasn't
birthday
upset
party.
that I didn't come. He was upset that his cousins didn't come from Florida. It had nothing to do with me. His cousins in Florida that he doesn't see a lot.
Now,
that's where it was at.
Give me more specific stories of how you feel he treats children differently.
We went on a trip to Gatlinburg. It was just the four of us.
Mrs. Johnson went on and on about how Mr. Johnson wasn't threatening both of their kids. In her words, he had a favorite one. You can bet Mr. Johnson wasn't just going to let her run her mouth. He comes in like a blazing inferno, telling her she's to be blamed. It's like a war zone in the courtroom.
My son, we took like a safari ride, and he said, oh, well, me and Ethan will ride on this one, and you and Elijah can ride on that. And it just hurts my son's feelings because he never shows that extra step to where...
She doesn't enforce me as a father figure. She doesn't...
I shouldn't have
I'm
to
the father
because
that's
he's
there.
been in his life since he was 2
I have
years
been there,
old,
exactly.
and he should take
If I've
that
been there
extra
this
step
long-
on his own.
As they kept trawling each other in the courtroom like it was another WWE wrestling match, mind-blowing revelations started to pop out. Believe me, these revelations will leave your jaws dropping from your mouth.
Do you?
No, I
To
don't.
your
Yes, he
biological
does.
child?
I don't.
He
show
does. He will
favoritism,
go
no.
in our son's room that we have together, and he will go
He's
in
my
there and play
son.
video
I'm not
games
gonna be
with them.
disrespected
At one point in
and
time,
then deal with it.
I
Why
would
not
go to
discipline
work and
children?
I would work nights, and they would have like movie night and all this other fun
And
stuff.
you would lay out
and then
rules
it
for him to do,
then
and
it
he
put
never
a-
does.
He put it to a stop.
After Mrs. Johnson was done throwing shades at her husband in the courtroom, it was Mr. Johnson's turn to spill the beans. And my God, did he have a lot to say about Mrs. Johnson and their 12-year-old boy. It was like an unending love series.
Do you have any idea why Elijah would feel this way?
Elijah's disrespectful to me, to
Yeah,
her,
but he's
to
disrespectful.
you feel
everyone,
like
to
it's because
everyone.
me and
When you
Mr.
say he's
Johnson have
disrespectful,
disrespectful to
first
everyone.
give me
He
some
takes-
specifics. What do you mean?
She told him, we got a new place together. I started to remodel the entire place. She told him specifically to clean up after himself. He is 12 years old.
The rants go on, and Mr. Johnson keeps pouring out his mind like a wounded lion. Does it end there? Of course not. Mrs. Johnson, filled with rage, jumps into the ring again and starts throwing shots at her husband. She even calls him a kid. These two can't wait to rip each other apart in the courtroom.
With me, him, and my other son, and they're fighting for about 2 hours straight, non-stop. She comes home, I tell her what happened, I tell her that they're not listening, and instead of disciplining the kids, she fights with me.
He's the one acting like he's 12 too.
I'm trying to teach him to be a man. I'm trying to teach this boy to be a man.
How specifically are you trying to teach him to be a man?
If he's 12 years old, can he pick up after himself? Can he listen to his mom? Can he respect his
So
elders?
learning how to do chores.
Mrs. Johnson's dad walks up to the stage and drops bombs on bombs, countering every single word Mr. Johnson says. It was almost like her dad was her husband's biggest OPP. Man just stood there, throwing heavy blows at Mr. Johnson. It was a tug of war, and nobody wanted to be beaten.
Johnson has put it to him and all people.
Everybody.
I see Elijah being left out on a lot of things. There's
out of
no
what?
father, son. The ice cream. You ask Ethan to pick up your room. It's like, would you pick up your room? What's wrong with you? Why don't?
So why aren't we here for the way you talk to Ethan?
You know, talk to him like a human being.
Knowing Mr. Johnson, you could bet he was ready for his comeback. As soon as Mrs. Johnson's dad was done talking, boom, he came with his comebacks that hit like bullets shot by a firing squad.
Wait. Wait, doesn't that go
You're
for
his
both?
grandfather.
Doesn't
Yes.
that go for both kids, though? Wouldn't that go for both children, not just Elijah? Like what Ethan, my son, he does the same thing. He babies Elijah. Oh, it'll be
you
okay.
shouldn't yell at Ethan
oh, it'll
either
be
like
okay.
that.
You yell at him. Your daughter will admit
So
it.
now you're saying that Mr. Amolch yells at.
He's way more aggressive with Ethan than he is with Elijah.
The moment of truth was finally here, but the air was thick with uncertainty as to whether their marriage was going to be saved or shattered for good. Time to see what the future holds for them. I hope you guys are ready.
As for the anger management request, you countersued and petitioned this court to order that Mrs. Johnson go to anger management. I realized that there was a petition for divorce. We've seen. I'm going to take a risk and just ask, now that we've consented to the anger management and the parenting courses, is it safe to say that we're going to work on this marriage?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. So we won't be needing this, right?
Right.
Mr. Powell doubts the paternity of his son because his ex-wife cheated on him 3 months after their marriage. His wife, Ms. Burns, who's here with her boyfriend, admits to cheating but wishes the child is his.
You claim your wife, Ms. Burns, cheated on you with the man standing next to her
Yes, Your Honor.
after only 3 months of marriage.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, then she left you to live with him, and now you say the paternity of your child is in question.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Ms. Burns, you believe that your boyfriend, Mr. Jones, could be your son's father.
Now, this is an interesting case. Ms. Burns cheated on her husband only 3 months after their wedding. That's ridiculous. Even worse, she moved out and went to live with her boyfriend, who, surprisingly, is also in court today.
Every time that we would get into an argument, she would leave me and go be with another person. And then if she got upset with that person, she would do the exact same thing, come back to me and sleep with me.
Now, how long did this go on for?
For about a year.
You married her during this time, and you continually take her back.
That's right, because I love her.
What? This man watched his wife shuffle between different men for a whole year and still always welcomed her home. This is a special kind of love. And guess what? It gets even worse if you can believe it.
Our marriage was good at first, mine and Kevin's. And
Well, it's just 90 days.
yes, but Mr. Powell's had a job and then he'd lose his job. He had a job and then he'd lose his job. I figured everything was put off on me. I have 3 other children other than the baby that I provide for. And I felt like all the burden was pushed off onto me.
You don't provide for your children, your mother does.
That's a nice comeback. But wait, 3 other children? So Ms. Burns had 3 children and a new husband, but she kept sleeping with different men. We need to get more details about this story, because so far, it's not very clear.
We have a child together. We have a 6-year-old together. So when the DNA come up for her and he come back the father to her, he wanted to meet her because he hadn't seen her pretty much her whole life.
Oh, so when you say the DNA came up, explain to me what you're saying. There was DNA testing done on this child,
Yes.
and he
And
was
he is-
one of the candidates that had to take the test?
Yes, Your Honor.
What the heck is going on? First, Ms. Burns has been in a situation similar to this one. She's questioned the paternity of one of her other kids before. Second, how does a married woman leave her home to stay with a baby daddy who hasn't been around for 6 years?
So when you were pregnant, did you tell both men you were pregnant?
Yes, Your Honor. I told Mr. Jones and he reacted differently than I expected.
What was that?
He
I was
mad.
pissed off, Your Honor. I wasn't very happy. I have 3 other kids, and then we got a DNA test with our 6-year-old, coming out to find out that I'm the father of that one. And
What did Mr. Powell say when you told him?
He didn't really say anything.
Whew. This has to be one of the most unbelievable cases we've ever come across. Ms. Burns and Mr. Jones have kids of their own and one together, and Mr. Jones doesn't want another kid. Then there's Mr. Powell, who doesn't know what to believe anymore.
Who was at the hospital?
My mother was.
I was never called, Your Honor.
You never got a call?
I never got a call, I never got a text, I ain't nothing.
We're still having sex, Your Honor.
All this time?
Yes. Even to this day.
What?
You know, up till a week ago. we
Up
were
till a
having
week
sex.
ago?
Yes.
Wait, Mr. Jones, you're laughing. Are you laughing because you don't believe it, or are you laughing because it's possible?
No, this is unbelievable. Mr. Powell and Ms. Burns are still having sex. These people are divorced. Apart from that, there's a paternity issue at hand, and Ms. Burns is supposed to be with someone else.
The question you were asked was as follows. Are you lying when you said you had sex with Ashley Burns in the last 30 days? You answered no, which meant you had sex and you weren't lying.
Yes, we did.
The lie detector determined you were telling the truth.
Now what? What do you have to say now?
Mr. Powell went as far as taking a lie detector test to prove that he and Ms. Burns are still having sex because he knew she was going to lie in court. Mr. Jones seems to think the whole thing is ridiculous, and so do we.
I have no idea, Your Honor. I did not know this was going to be like this. I'm kind of hurt.
It's because she's lying to both of us.
That's
what's been going on the whole time.
I so agree with you, man, because the main reason why I actually left Miss Burns because she cheated on me way back when, and that is the reason why I didn't know the 6-year-old could have been mine. That's why I needed the DNA test to figure that out.
We're as confused as you, Mr. Jones. Turns out Ms. Burns is a serial cheat and liar, and honestly, it's getting out of hand. Nobody knows what to believe anymore. Who is lying? Who is telling the truth?
I buy things for the baby all the time because I didn't know if this was my child or not.
Because you love the child.
I do, and I love the mother of this child.
And do you still want to be with her today?
Absolutely. When we got married, you know, she told me ahead of time that she had 3 children previous to our relationship, and I always wanted a family.
You may be thinking Mr. Powell is out of his mind, but he is just a man in love. What's sad is he's in love with the wrong person. This woman doesn't care about him, not even in the slightest bit.
After what I've heard today, Your Honor, I hope it's Mr. Powell's.
Really?
And
Why
Your
do you
Honor,
say that?
Your Honor,
because like I said, Your Honor, I have 3 kids besides Lucas, Your Honor, and actually, want to be technical, I would have 4 kids, Your Honor. I do take care of her other daughter that's not mine, and she calls me daddy and everything like that, Your Honor.
At this point, the men have formed an alliance because they are both victims of Ms. Burns' tactics. How can you have your children called 2 different men daddy? It's a lot to handle.
This is a first where the 2 would-be fathers have now taken the same side of the plaintiff podium against you. I've never seen it in all my days. And before I go to the results, I have to give you another opportunity because there obviously have been some lies. Is it something you have not said in this courtroom?
She finally said the truth. It's time for the results. Let's find out who the lucky, or should we say unlucky, baby daddy is. The good thing is that Judge Lauren has all the results we might need right here for us.
Mr. Jones, you are his father. That you perpetrating on these 2 men. I mean, you just got them all messed up in the head. Mr. Jones thought he was the father, then he heard you cheated, then he didn't want to be the father, but he is the father. Mr. Powell thought he was the father, but he's not the father, but he wants to be with you, and
I don't know now.
This was a paternity case like no other. With so much regret, Mr. Patrick appeared in court, claiming that a stranger whom he welcomed into his home out of the kindness of his heart ended up sleeping with his girlfriend. He now believes he is not the father of her twins.
Mr. Patrick, you say 5 years ago you made a huge mistake by opening your doors to a stranger who needed a place to stay because that man betrayed you and slept with your girlfriend, Ms. Pence. Today, you're here to prove that you didn't father Pence's fraternal twins, 4-year-olds Larry and Carrie, and the other man did. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Patrick must have been a really welcoming man. The question ringing in everyone's head was about how a stranger he welcomed into his home ended up kicking it in bed with his girlfriend.
So
Which
you
I thought would
basically
be-
took in a person that was going to rent a room.
Yeah, basically, yes.
Okay.
Well, he stayed maybe 5 or 6 days, and he up and moved out. And I questioned her. I said, wonder why he just upped and left. Is it because me and you argue a lot?
Okay.
You know, time goes on. Me and her sat around and had a few drinks, sitting at home enjoying ourselves.
OMG, she sneaked out to sleep with the stranger? Now that's something you don't see every day. In trying to defend herself, she claimed that Mr. Patrick always accused her of sleeping with people. But was that really the case?
Yes, Mr. Patrick. I had never slept with anyone else before that night. I had
You're always
constantly.
You're so flirtatious.
I was that's how I was brought up. I'm constantly calling people honey and babe.
What did
That's
I tell
just
you?
I'm from the South.
Different
That's
men
how
don't
I was
take it
raised.
different.
It has nothing to do with that. I never slept with anyone before that. Never. You constantly accused me of it, and I kept telling you, you're going to keep pushing, and it's going to happen.
Mr. Patrick might be onto something there. Maybe the sexual tension was getting too much for them to handle. Anyway, Ms. Penn was not going to deny that what she did was wrong, but she claimed that deep down in her heart, she wanted to make things right.
Why that guy? It seemed like you went out
there
looking
was
for him.
no specific reason as to why that guy. It was just someone at the time that was around, and it happened.
So in other words, you
But he
could've did
wasn't
that with
around.
anybody.
He had left the house.
He had, Your Honor. I was with my neighbor, like I had stated earlier. Me and her had went out, I did kind of look for him.
I mean, can she really blame him for thinking she's always cheating after what she did? She better cut him some slack. Judge Lauren then went on to ask her when she found out she was pregnant.
And then on August 7th is the date that the twins were born.
That don't mean that. That's a 5-day window.
It does. The doctor had said that the twins were conceived right around the 2nd of November, Your Honor. The twins were born almost completely full term. And if you count those dates back, it only leads to Mr. Patrick.
Oh, she thought she was smart. Was she trying to hide the date she slept with the stranger from the judge? Oh well. Aside from the fact that she cheated on him, Mr. Patrick told the judge that he had other reasons that made him doubt the baby was his.
What are those doubts?
I think he's ADHD or something like that. You know what I mean? He doesn't listen. He's rambunctious.
He's a little boy.
I understand
Mr.
he's a
Patrick.
little boy, and I hope he grows out of it someday, but I believe he's ADHD or
There's
something.
nothing wrong
He's
with
autistic.
And so-
Doesn't run in my family.
How do you
doesn't
know
run in
that?
her family.
How do you know that it doesn't
Well,
run
I've
in
been
your
with
family?
you for 10 years, honey.
It doesn't matter. You don't know everything, every single thing about your family history.
I'm not going to fault Judge Lauren for asking a doctor to come to the courtroom. Mr. Patrick, for some reason, felt that one of the twins had a disorder that made him feel the child was not his. This was what the doctor had to say.
So sometimes we can point to one gene, sometimes it's multiple genes, and sometimes it's the way that the genes interact with the environment, and sometimes the genes have nothing to do with it, and it's just something that happened during the pregnancy or during the delivery or in that child's early childhood that can affect how they learn.
That's interesting because you're saying the gene could be a factor, but there's also the gene plus the environment component.
Right.
From the doctor's explanation, it looks like Mr. Patrick might be wrong to claim that he is the father of just one of the twins. But one thing was certain, his doubts were affecting his relationship with Ms. Penny on a major level.
We've always had arguments over stuff.
Yes, but Your Honor,
Just
we
after
haven't.
all this
we
happened.
haven't even been had sex in probably the past 4 months. It's just a constant argument from the time that I get up until the time that I go to bed. Pretty much, it's constant argument.
Concerning paternity
over
issues?
Paternity and the one night stand and him saying that it happened more than the one time, Your Honor.
You heard Mr. Patrick. If it happens that he isn't the father of the twins, he is dumping Ms. Pence's ass and leaving her with the kids. After so much talking had been done, Judge Lauren felt it was time to reveal the results of the lie detector test.
You were asked the following questions. During the last 10 years of your relationship with Mr. Patrick, have you had sexual contact with any other man other than the man whom you admitted to cheating with?
Yes, Your Honor.
You said no. The lie detector determined you were being deceptive.
How is that?
Oh, wow. Ms. Penn had more skeletons in her cupboard than she was willing to tell the courtroom. After hearing those results, Judge Lauren felt it was time to reveal the DNA results and see if anything Ms. Pence said was true at all.
Mr. Patrick, you are the father.
I told you that you was the father. I told you.
Are you relieved, Mr. Patrick?
Oh, very much so. The deception stuff with the lie detector test, that's something that's going to have to be worked on because that just right there shows me I may not be able to trust her again.
Ms. Cousin and her mother had one goal in that courtroom. That was to prove to her ex-boyfriend and his new girlfriend that he was the father of her child. Trust me, these guys weren't here to play.
You and your mother say you had no choice but to drag the defendant, Mr. Bell, into court today because you're fed up with his lies.
Yes,
He
Your Honor.
denies being the father of your 7-month-old son, Taquan, and has even gone to the extreme by blocking all contact with you. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bell, you say that Miss Cousin has told you that you are not Taquan's father.
Everyone in that courtroom was tense. Ms. Cousin's mom was a force not to be reckoned with. She had all the power in the world to fight anyone who wronged her and her daughter. She wasn't the one who was hurt, but she sure was doing all the talking in that courtroom.
I'm fed up with his lies because he a two-time liar. He told my daughter that he was single, that he was not in a relationship. I know he was in a relationship with her because I seen his picture on her phone. When she started being with him, I seen how her attitude changed. I knew then that she was pregnant.
Apparently, Mr. Bell lied to his daughter and told her he was not in any relationship, but deep down, he had been seeing someone else. false. Mr. Bell was definitely not going to keep quiet while they dragged his name through the mud.
We went out once, but that was it. A whole weekend? No. I had to get back to her.
You went out once? A whole weekend, yes. And then not only that, y'all had lunch together.
Can she let her daughter talk?
She wasn't there? Room. I go in her room, I found receipts with 2 combos on it. I asked her what the combos for. For him and her.
Mr. Bell wasn't just sleeping with her, he was also using her to sort out some of his bills. Ms. Cousin was furious. She couldn't understand why a man would lie to her daughter and still manipulate her into paying his bills.
When she should have been.
Were you paying his phone bill?
Yes. While she was paying his phone bill and buying him lunch, I was also doing other things for me and my husband have a roof over our head. We don't have no other income, but what my husband do is work. And at the end of the day, I want Cortez to step up and take the responsibility and be a man and help take care of his son.
Mr. Bell wasn't changing his story. He stood firm with his side of the story and said everything they accused him of was a big, fat lie. There was no relationship between them, and all he did was flirt with her and eat whatever food she offered him. Nothing more.
No.
Well, you said you already ate the food because she was buying it.
Yeah, she offered.
So, Mr. Bell, you said this was a one-time thing when you had sex with...
In a car.
Oh, okay, so you had sex in a car. Did you use protection?
Yes.
No lie.
Yes.
No lie. Miss Cousin and her mom, they're claiming that this was going on. This was an ongoing relationship. That's not true?
No.
When Ms. Cousin's daughter found out she was pregnant, she called Mr. Bell to tell him about it. And on the spot, he denied the pregnancy, saying it couldn't be his, and he wanted nothing to do with the baby.
When I came home, I called him. I said, I'm pregnant. He said, oh, well, call me back. Let me know what you gonna do. And that was it, and he hung up the phone.
Did you tell your manager at work?
I told my manager, because that's the day that my back was hurting. She said,
and she
you
told
can go.
me the baby wasn't mine. I don't want the baby by you anyway.
Wait, he just said that you told him the baby wasn't his.
It was turning into an unending catastrophe in the courtroom. The judge had taken enough of their rants and arguments, and she decided it was time to bring the situation to a close by reading out the DNA results. Who do you think the father of the child would be? Mr. Baker or his so-called best friend?
Mr. Bell, you are the father.
Thank you, Lord Jesus. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You're silent now.
I'll take my child support papers in the mail.
You've been chirping off all day.
All day.
You could not let them get a sentence out without downplaying everything they said. Everything.